Logan Webb roughed up in the first inning, and that was basically the game. The Giants weren't able to recover from the 5 runs he gave up, but the beauty of being in the strong position the Giants are in overall is that not every loss is devastating. And in fact, the Giants are going for another series win today, and they're starting a pitcher who you probably wouldn't have expected that they're going to start, and it's kind of a big deal. We'll get into it next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And coming up on today's show, yes, we're not going to dwell too much on this loss. There's not that much to say about it, and that was my point, was that when you're in a pretty good position, not every loss has to be devastating. And I think of the example, of course, it's kind of a cliche, but if you win 100 games, it's obviously a great season. You're going to lose 62 times. That's a lot of times. And so, imagine dwelling and getting upset and devastated by everyone. You don't. And the Giants are not on a 100-win pace, but the halfway point of the season comes after today's game. And so if they lose, then they've won 45 games, so they would be on pace for 90. And if they win, they'll have won 46, and so they would be on pace for 92. So, that would be a good result if the Giants win 90 to 92 games. And that's currently where their pace is, so to speak. So Logan Webb, of course, he went out there in the first inning and he gave up 5 runs. And that was basically the game. The Giants only scored 1, and so that was it. And there's not too much else to say about this. Logan Webb settled in. He didn't allow any more runs and retired pretty much all the rest of the hitters he faced the rest of the way. Not all of them. He gave up a couple more base runners, but final line, 5 innings, 8 hits, a lot of those in the first, no walks, 5 strikeouts, no homers. That's good to see. And then Ross Stripling made his first appearance in a long time. And I think, it's kind of a big deal that he was able to come back. And also Gabe Kapler pointed out it's a big deal that they were able to cover this game with only 2 pitchers. And so all the talk about the bullpen games and sustainability and all that, a game like this where you don't even use them, essentially, is how you make up for that. And I pointed out yesterday, it wasn't a bullpen game. It was like an Alex Wood start. Essentially, it was just Ryan Walker pitched the first inning instead of the 6th inning, and then 5 innings from Alex Wood. So anyway, those were kind of there's not much else to say except that Michael Conforto exited the game with hamstring tightness, I believe was the official kind of word. But from what I heard, they're not going to scan him, and so maybe it's just pretty mild. But if he misses time, you're missing, obviously, Mitch Haniger. You're missing Mike Yastrzemski with a hamstring issue, and then Michael Conforto potentially. And that's your starting outfield. Those are your 3 main guys against a right-handed pitcher. Against a lefty, you'd see just like Slater platooning in there. And by the way, Slater came in for Conforto and hit a home run against a righty. So he's had some opportunities against right-handed pitching lately and has taken advantage of it, but he always shows flashes of it. But then if you watch the rest of his at-bats, like it'd be easy to focus on the home run, but then the rest of his at-bats, there was a leadoff double, and then against a righty he struck out, just for example, not able to move that guy along. So he has his struggles against right-handed pitching, and we could pull up the numbers, but that's not really the focus here. I wanted to focus, like I said, on actually moving forward and looking at today's game, where the Giants have a chance to win another series. They've won many series in a row. They won the D-back series. They won the Padres series, taking 3 out of 4. And then back to the road trip, they swept the Dodgers. They swept the Cardinals. So, yeah, their last series loss was against the Cubs at home when they lost 2 out of 3. And prior to that, they swept the Rockies. And so it's been a good month. They did lose 2 out of 3 to the Orioles at home also. So, like I said, you don't dwell on the loss, and you have a chance to get another series win on the road before heading out to face the Mets, who are kind of floundering big time right now. Their owner just did a press conference yesterday trying to take responsibility for the way the season has gone for the Mets. And so hopefully the Giants, I said this about the Cardinals and I'll say it about the Mets, kick them while they're down. And they're down right now. But today's game features a starting pitcher you would probably not expect because he's been pitching out of the bullpen, and that is Keaton Winn. And what have I said? If you're an everydayer, you've heard me say on the show, when Keaton Winn has pitched, it didn't take much for me to say this, that to me it looks like a starter's repertoire. Like, the fastball is upper 90s, the splitter is upper 80s, low 90s, and it has wicked movement, and it just watching the hitters react to the pitch is clearly it's a good pitch. They're just whoa, who is this guy? And then he's also got a two-seamer, like a sinker, to go along with that two-pitch primary mix. And the sinker it's got pretty good movement itself, and it's 95 miles an hour. And so Keaton Winn, he's pitched 12 innings in the major leagues, he hasn't really struck a ton of guys out, but he has gotten a ton of ground balls and a 3.75 ERA, a 3.23 expected ERA, 3.85 fielding independent pitching. Granted, out of the bullpen, but also 3 appearances, 12 innings. So he's gone an average of 4 innings per appearance. And so I think that it's a big deal that he's making a start and that it's not just an opener situation. And so it's a big opportunity for him because there's clearly some opening in the starting rotation right now. I've explained this, but in the bullpen, they've got 5 or 6 guys who could be starting pitchers. Their only real true relief arms are Doval, the Rogers twins, and Ryan Walker. And then the rest of the bullpen is these long relief types. And Keaton Winn, I'm just not going to put him into that category of a long reliever. I think he has the opportunity to be a quality major league starter, and he's going to get that chance today against the Toronto Blue Jays. So I look forward to that, and it's an opportunity to win a series. Hopefully the Giants could do it. They'll be going up against Chris Bassett, who hasn't had the best first season in Toronto. So coming up in just a minute, we're actually going to get to some more mailbag questions. We had several left over. We're still going to have several left over after we get to these ones today, but lots of questions, including who are the real Giants? Are they these most recent 40 games, or are they the first 40 games? We'll get into it in just a minute, but before we do, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets shouldn't have to be such a stressful event, and for me, I don't know about you, but it always was before Game Time. And two of the things that were the most stressful for me, number one, maybe I buy my tickets in advance. In fact, that's something I often do. What if I'm going on the road? That's a great example. If I'm going to another stadium, perhaps one I haven't been to before, I don't know when is the best time to buy the tickets. Is it, months before? Is it the day of? Is it somewhere in between? And so I stress out about, am I getting the best price? And the other thing, especially with a venue I haven't been to, is what is the view from the seat? And one of the things you can't tell from just looking at a seating chart is how high is the elevation. And so you don't know. You can see it's a different deck or level, but how high is it? What does it look like? And with Game Time, all of that is solved. You get images of seat views and the Game Time guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Wow. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, here we go. We are going to get to some mailbag questions because, like I said, we don't need to dwell for 22 to 30 minutes about a loss to the Blue Jays when you've got a chance to take a series on the road tonight. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down, hopefully, a series win against the Blue Jays, and Keaton Winn making his first Major League start. That's pretty exciting to me. Giants play the Blue Jays with Keaton Winn on the mound tonight, again at 4:07 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. So yeah, let's just jump right into the mailbag questions that I wanted to get to. Elon's Musk asks, what does the front office believe are the real Giants, the first 40 games or the most recent 40 games? So, yeah, I mean, they've played exactly 80 games. You're right. I mean, this question was asked several days ago, a couple days ago, and now they really have played the first 40 and the last 40. So I don't actually have the numbers pulled up about what is their record in the most recent 40 versus the first 40, but obviously they've been better recently than they were to start the season. I know they started 6-13, but really I think their turnaround started earlier than the first. It wasn't like they were bad for 40 games. They were bad for a few weeks, and then they started to turn it around. But the boring answer I'm going to give you, Elon's Musk, is that I think the front office believes that they are a combination of the two, and that they are what they are overall. And so, like, they are, I mean, what does the front office believe? They may believe something. They have their own, like, projections for their players and for the rest of the league. And so they're not going to be, like, fooled by a sample of 40 games or something. They have a projection system that's telling them exactly what they think the team is going to do. But like in my opinion, which you're not asking for, but I'm just going to give because I think it's a more like fitting answer, is that their overall winning percentage is .563, 56.3% of the games they have won. It's a pace of like 91 wins. Like I said, if they lose today, they'll be at a pace of 90 wins. If they win today, they'll be at a pace of 92 wins. So right now they're at a pace of about 91 wins. And I think that that's about where they are. But the thing is the injuries can change everything. If you start losing your players, then it changes everything, right? Of course. But that's also factored into the projections for a team. And the Giants know their current situation, and they know if they were to lose guys, who would be the guys who substitute and replace them. So far, it's been a tough year for injuries for the Giants. Not the toughest. Plenty of guys have stayed mostly healthy, and their most important guys like Webb and Doval and J.D. Davis and Lamont Wade and Tyro have been healthy for the most part. But yeah, they have certainly dealt with some injuries. The youth that's come up, like that factors in to your future projections, and those guys weren't necessarily there for the first 40 games. Like that made them a different team. With Patrick Bailey specifically has kind of separated himself. Behind Bailey, I would say Luis Matos, and then behind Luis Matos, Casey Schmitt. And it's probably like before the season have reversed that in terms of expectations for these players. But Patrick Bailey has been the most impactful by far of the position player rookies who have come up. Then you've also got guys like Keaton Winn, who has the potential to establish himself as a major league starter, and it could start tonight. But the boring answer is that the bigger the sample, the better the accuracy. And so I think the front office believes, although, again, the new players and the injuries play a role, that the team is what it's been over the larger sample. So I guess that's more closely resembling the most recent 40 games. Kind of, maybe. I'd have to look at what their record is, but that's the boring answer. The next question comes from SF Sports Fam, who says, why is it taking so long for Kyle Harrison to be called up? The Giants need more starting pitching depth ASAP. And they may. They're also getting close to the All-Star break, so they're going to have a chance to kind of reset like 4 days off or 3 or whatever it is. And also, like I said, they've got, like yesterday, they were able to cover a game with just 2 pitchers and Ross Stripling and Logan Webb. And you don't think of Ross Stripling as like a reliever, but he's kind of, the Giants are covering innings in an unorthodox way. And I think it's throwing people off and saying like they can't sustain all these bullpen games, but they're not really bullpen games because you're just having guys like starting, quote unquote, covering large amounts of innings in the middle of the games as opposed to like right at the beginning. But I agree with you that like if I was worried about building a roster for a playoff run, I think that clearly starting pitching is a need, and you'd really like to have another top arm to kind of pair with Logan Webb, and then, you know, have Alex Cobb after that. And then after that, I mean, it does get kind of iffy, and I don't feel great about Alex Wood or DeSclafani, who have both been kind of inconsistent this year. So yeah, but your question is about Kyle Harrison, and the answer is he's just continuing to walk too many people. And so they just don't think it's going to translate to success given how much difficulty he's had with throwing strikes. And then in his most recent outing, he went 2 1/3, gave up 7 earned runs, 3 homers, walked 2, hit a batter, struck out only 2. And so his most recent outing was his worst outing of the year. And, you know, talk of service time manipulation or anything like that, I think is kind of bogus or just inaccurate. And Kyle Harrison just simply hasn't done yet the things that they want him to do in order to earn a call-up. I mean, the walk rate, he's walking over 7 guys per 9 innings, which is just, you want that, even if it's at like 4, that's really kind of high. You want that around 3 or so. And yeah, so he just hasn't performed in the way they want him to yet in AAA, but he's young, and I would expect that in time he will be able to do so. So the next question is coming from Mosh, who says the Giants have to look more attractive to Ohtani in the offseason if they keep winning, right? And the answer to that question I will get to in just a minute. People want to know about Shohei Ohtani for sure, and we will answer the question about the Giants and Ohtani in just a minute. But before we do, all right, as promised, we are going to get to this question about Shohei Ohtani and does the Giants having a successful season so far, and we'll see how it goes the rest of the way, influence the potential of signing Shohei Ohtani. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow on the show, breaking down, can the Giants win this series? It's the rubber match, as they say, and so a big game in that sense. Can they carry that momentum into New York if they were able to win a series? And Keaton Winn making his first start, that's a big one. If he can have a good start, then he could stick in that rotation, given that nobody's really sees that role. The Giants play the Blue Jays tonight at 4:07 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. So yeah, this question from Mosh about Ohtani. So the Giants have to look more attractive if they keep winning, right? Yes, I think 100%. And I did an episode with Sully from Locked On MLB, which is a great show, and you should check it out. But before the season, and it was like we were talking about the Giants and their offseason and whatever, and one of the major topics we got into was next year's free agent class, because we were discussing how clearly this past offseason the Giants went big game hunting. They tried to sign Aaron Judge. They had an agreement with Carlos Correa, who, by the way, has had a very rough season. And Giants have like 7 or 8 players who have been better than Carlos Correa this year. Just goes to show you the craziness of baseball. and the unpredictability, and how just getting a star doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do in baseball. But we said, clearly they were going big game hunting last offseason. And then if you're talking about, why wouldn't they do it again this offseason was kind of our point. And this free agent class is just not as deep as last year's or the year before. And really, Ohtani is like the main guy. Obviously, he would be the main guy no matter what. But after Ohtani, I'd have to look at it again. But there aren't that many guys who are even in line for deals over $100 million. If anything, we're looking at starting pitchers and not position players. And Ohtani, of course, is partially a starting pitcher. But the main takeaway from that discussion I had with Sully was that the Giants needed to win this year. Because if you follow up a 500 season with another disappointing year, 500 or worse, or even like a game, whatever, a disappointing season, then that 107 win season looks like it's totally in the rearview mirror and totally a fluke. And I just was saying, then I don't think you have any shot at this guy really, because his main thing is that he wants to win, from what I've heard, in the media. And the Angels, like playing for the Angels and how they've been unable to even get him to the playoffs, has taken a toll. And this year they could make a run and make the playoffs with him. But there's just no question that if the Giants, like, say they even just take off even more and just win, not only 90, 91, 92, but like 94 games or whatever, and then I think once you get there, then get greedy and start having some postseason success. And you look at like the way people thought about the Padres, for example, last year. Even though they lost in the NLCS, they just showed well in the wild card series and then in the division series against the Dodgers. And so if you can be a team like that or more, be a team like the Phillies that goes to the World Series, and of course winning the World Series is the ultimate goal, but it's hard to do is what I'm saying. But you could definitely be on the radar there. The one thing I'll say is that Andy Baggerly reported that Seiya Suzuki, who apparently the Giants also were interested in, Baggerly reported that Seiya Suzuki didn't want to play for the Giants because of like reporting in Japan about the state of the city and like homelessness and stuff like that. So, I don't know anything about if that's true. I assume it's true based on Baggerly's reporting, and also like, just kind of there. I guess there was a big major report or something in Japan that was widely viewed, and it was about San Francisco, something like that. And Seiya Suzuki never went to San Francisco. That's part of the equation here, is that he was just like from Japan and had never seen these cities before. And so I think maybe you can be skewed by that versus if you've actually been to San Francisco and seen, the positive side of, which is most of it, the city. And for Shohei Ohtani, he's been to San Francisco as a player. And the Giants will play the Angels at some point this year. And I believe, based on my memory of thinking about this before, I believe that they will come to San Francisco. Let me see. I'm scrolling through the schedule. It looks like it'll be they go to Anaheim. So I guess the Angels don't come to San Francisco this year, sadly, because I was thinking like Giants fans should give like a standing ovation to Shohei Ohtani just to kind of put it in his mind that they really want this guy. But the Angels don't come here this year. So anyway, Shohei's actually been to San Francisco, experienced the ballpark and how beautiful it is in the surrounding area. I don't know what year exactly he came here and what the fan, attendance and all that was like, but I'm kind of rambling at this point. But yes, I think that winning is critical for trying to have a shot at this guy. And then beyond that, I've expressed my doubts about the front office kind of. I think that he would be actually an exception, though. But, they hesitate to give long-term deals to pitchers, and Ohtani's probably going to get like 10 plus years. and he is largely a pitcher and otherwise a DH. But the point has been made by others asking the question, kind of responding to me in like follow-up mailbag questions. And then I agree 100% that I think that if he had some sort of, if the pitching started to become a problem and he was experiencing arm issues or whatever, at some point in a 10-year deal or whatever, it's possible that he could just ditch the pitching and play. Like, he's such a good athlete. He could easily, to me, play the outfield. He's got great speed. He's obviously got a great arm. So there's nothing this guy can't do on a baseball field. Maybe catcher. Maybe he would not be a great catcher or shortstop. But, I mean, as an outfielder or a first baseman, but really as an outfielder, that would kind of, I think you could project he's still going to be a stud as an outfielder. So those are my thoughts on Ohtani, but absolutely yes, winning is critical. Last question, Mike Yastrzemski, enjoyer, says, DeSclafani started out pretty hot, and although his last start on Sunday was good, it has been a rough stretch for him lately. What does he need to do to get back to his early season form, or is he just experiencing some Alex Cobb 2021 bad luck? 2022 bad luck. Yeah, so I don't think it's just bad luck. Like, he looked so sharp, and the shapes of his pitches and the command, I think command has been a big thing, but also the shapes of his pitches. And what I mean by that is the literal shape when they come out of the hand. Like, his sinker just had beautiful shape. The slider was good. He was flipping over. I don't know. Does he throw a curveball? But basically, the sinker and the slider are the main weapons for him, and they've just not quite had that same. He showed flashes of it. You're right, in that last start where it did at times. He was really sharp and looked like that first month Anthony DeSclafani. But yeah, for the stretch of struggles, it was like command and pitch shape. So I really think it's just kind of, it's a thing that needs to. I don't know if he's experiencing any kind of pain or injury or whatever, because that can definitely influence those things. But it's not just bad luck. It's stuff that he needs to work on. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow breaking down the finale in Toronto before the Giants head to New York for their last road series of the first half of the season before the All-Star break. Keaton Winn on the mound. We'll be breaking that one down, making his first career start. Giants play the Blue Jays tonight at 4:07 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thanks in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.